Please purchase a personal license to remove this message. The family charged, but they did not move like people. They jerked forward on strings of spent will, their eyes empty of everything but borrowed fury. They were puppets, and the thing holding their strings had long since stopped seeing them as anything but disposable. The plan was simple, brutal, and utterly devoid of care for those involved: surround, overwhelm, and butcher. If a puppet got destroyed, you tossed it aside and picked up another one. There were always more souls desperate enough to trade their tomorrow for power today. The plan was sound, and it would have succeeded against any other man, but John Wayne had danced with the devil before more times than he cared to count, and he knew how to deal with such traps. John didn't wait for their clumsy pincer movement. He broke into a sprint, meeting their charge head-on. The Colt in one hand and saber in the other. Little Matthew Jr., wedged between his parents, bought the rifle stock up against his thin shoulder. His finger, puppet by a will not his own, it itched to pull the trigger. From the shattered window above, Epstein, his eyes wide with a terror that was entirely his own, fired. The shot exploded from the barrel, a flat, angry crack in the night. It missed John by a hand's breadth, plowing into the thick porch post beside him. Wood erupted in a burst of sharp, white splinters that rained down like brittle hail. John didn't flinch. His head turned, a single, smooth motion. The Colt rose and spoke once. The bullet took Epstein in the mouth. It was a brutal, silencing shot. Teeth became shrapnel, tongue parted, and the back of his cheek exploded outward in a wet spray. His scream was a wet, gurgling ruin. The pain stole his balance. He pitched backward-forward through the broken window and crashed to the ground below, his spine snapping like kindling as the earth claimed him. In the same second, Matthew Jr. giggled, a sound too high and hollow. "Bang, you dead, cowboy!" The rifle cracked. The round grazed John's ear, a hot line of fire that left a single, perfect bead of blood to trace down his neck. John's reply was a center mass shot that punched through the boy's chest with a sound like a boot stomping mud. The shard behind the boy looked down, afraid. The terror in his eyes was sharp, personal. He looked at the ground, his lips moving soundlessly. "I'm still here. I can still be useful. Don't throw me away." The soul had not expected a response from its master, but he got one, just not the one he wished for. "You are a fragment. A splinter of a greater will. We showed our too much love and bathed you in our radiance, but you have shown yourself to be unworthy, and we have decided to correct our mistake. You beg for mercy, but mercy is only for those of our champions who can still be useful to us. But you are a broken tool, and we don't waste mercy on broken tools. And just as we showed no mercy to the shard of you that wore the girl's skin, and we shall show you none as well. But don't worry, your suffering will not be wasted, for it will be the answer to the question, what happens when you disappoint us?" The voice did not rise in volume. It simply was, final as a verdict carved into the bedrock of the world. The ground beneath the boy's feet didn't crack, it opened. A hand, not of lava but of compacted, screaming souls and blackened judicial stone, erupted. Its fingers, each a prison cell, closed around the small body. There was no ceremony. No smoke. Just a violent yank, and he was gone. The earth sealed with a sound like a ledger being slammed shut. John was already moving towards Kate. Kate came at him, her cleaver a silver arc. The thing riding her muscles was screaming through her voice in fear, but John heard only the whistle of the blade. He met it with his saber. Steel shrieked, and he used his own momentum to spin her off balance. As she stumbled, he placed the muzzle of the Colt against her right eye and pulled the trigger. Her head snapped back. The cleaver fell from limp fingers. She was dead before her knees buckled. Another failure. The same hell voice sighed, annoyed. Another hand, identical to the first, burst forth and dragged her down to hell to pay for her failure. John turned, expecting Matthew to be charging at his back. He wasn't. In his place stood an abomination. It was 9 feet of cascading biological failure. The butcher knife had swollen into a monstrous, tree-sized blade of black iron and weeping bone and merged with its right arm. Flesh bubbled with tumorous growths, ribs pierced through skin in jagged spikes. One eye was buried under a cataract of cancerous tissue. The other, a human, hazel eye rolled in its socket, leaking tears of pure agony. The man inside was still home, watching through a single window as his body was remade into something not even remotely human. The puppet master felt as each shards of his soul were ripped from the whole and dragged, shrieking, into the deepest dungeons of hell. With each soul that fell, he felt the displeasure of his master wash over him, a tide of silent, suffocating fury that thickened the air and made the very light curdle. Now terror overrode all his cunning. He didn't pour more hellfire into the puppet called Matthew, he drowned him in it. It was a reckless, toxic flood of power, more than he had ever poured into a dozen puppets combined. He wasn't empowering a weapon, he was using the puppet's body as a dam to hold back the tide of his own torments. He knew the vessel would not survive it. The flesh would warp, the mind would shatter, the soul within would be scorched to ash. The puppet would be scrap, unusable, unrecognizable wreckage. But if it could kill John Wayne, it might buy the puppet master enough goodwill with its master that they might let him live. Stop, please God. No. Matthew's soul whimpered. It was ignored. Puppets don't get a vote. The abomination swung its blade arm. It wasn't a fighter's swing, it didn't need to be with that much force. John saw it coming and chose not to block it. He stepped back, letting the mass of corrupted flesh and metal tear the air where he stood. The thing stumbled, overbalanced. John stepped in. He pressed the muzzle of the Colt to the back of its temple, and emptied the remaining chambers into it. The abomination jolted with each impact. The hell light in its veins flickered and died. It fell, first to its knees, then forward, hitting the earth with a wet, final thud. Another puppet destroyed, said the hell voice. This time, not one, but a dozen stone hands erupted. They didn't just drag the body down, they dissolved it as they pulled, breaking it into components, sins and regrets, sucking it into a pit that glowed with the cold light of infernal accounting. A scream tore from the front of the motel, a raw, psychic shriek of pure panic. Epstein's body thrashed on the ground, a broken puppet. From his ruined mouth poured a stream of curses and promises in a language that predated man, guttural, clicking syllables that slithered through the air and made the very darkness feel polluted. He swore in the tongue of fallen angels, vowed torments written in the marrow of dead stars. The ground beneath his chest wasn't just crumbling, it was turning to a fine, sucking ash. He could feel the cold, granular texture of the hell hand as it breached the surface, not yet grasping, but petting, fingers made up of compacted grave soot and bone filth plucking at the fabric of his shirt in a grotesque parody of comfort. He fired the rifle wildly, not aiming, just jerking the trigger in time with his convulsions. Bullets bit into the dirt, stitching a jagged line that came close to John's boots, not as attack, but as the final, spastic twitch of a creature already being dragged under. John was already gone, a shadow sliding behind the rain barrel as the last shot kicked up a final puff of earth where he had been. In desperation, the puppet master made his final, catastrophic gambit. He abandoned Epstein's ruined body like a spent cartridge. He poured every scorched remnant of his damned soul into the mortgage of the traveler's repose. The traveler's repose shuddered. Wood groaned, planks splintered and reknit into thick, multi-jointed insectal legs. The porch posts became grasping, skeletal fingers. Every window stretched into a gaping, howling mouth. From a dozen throats of splintered wood and jagged glass, the voice returned. It did not boom from a single source. It screeched and wailed from every shattered window, every splintered plank, every nail pulling free. The motel itself had become a screaming choir of one damned soul. This was no declaration of power. It was the furious, scraping shriek of a soul who could feel the hooks of hell already in its back, who knew the exact nature of the torment to come, and whose final, frantic thought was not of escape but of taking the man who was the cause of all his ills. John Wayne. The voice did not boom. It settled, cold and specific, from every splintered mouths of the motel. I will not kill you. I will unmake you. I will peel your skin back stitch by stitch and let the sun scar what's underneath. I will hollow your bones and fill them with whispers of every soul you failed. I will break your teeth and reset them one by one, so you may chew on your own tongue for eternity. And when I grow bored of your screams, I will slip inside your skin. I will wear your hands and use them to strangle everything you ever loved. I will walk into a church with your face and slaughter every innocent in your name. I will dig up the graves of those you avenged and piss on their bones with your body. You will watch from behind your own eyes. You will feel every violation. You will hear your own voice begging for their mercy. And when your legend is a poison, and your name a curse, and the world spits on your memory, I will take you to hell. And there, John Wayne, the real work begins. I will teach you the artistry of anguish. I will make you an apprentice in the factory of despair. And when you finally, beautifully break, you will not be a victim. You will be one of the damned. You will hunt the righteous for us. You will become the very thing you spent your life destroying. That is my promise. The house beast lurched forward, a tsunami of wrathful lumber and shattered glass, blotting out the sky. Then the dynamite, John's little farewell gift, caught up. For one heart-stopping heartbeat, there was only a silent, expanding sun of raw fury where the motel stood. Then the sound hit a deep, grinding roar that was less a noise and more the earth itself vomiting. The traveler's repose didn't just collapse. It was obliterated. Wood didn't splinter. It flashed charred into blackened claws before bursting into ash. Glass didn't shatter. It melted mid-air into poisonous rain. The screaming mouths in the windows stretched into silent, final howls before being unmade by the light. Hundreds of burning splinters shot outward, not as debris, but as projectiles of pure hatred. They thudded into the rain barrel John hid behind, not like rain, but like the relentless pounding of a furious heart. From beneath the annihilated ruins, the ground did not crack. It bled open. Not one or two, but hundreds of massive, clawed hands of molten rock and screaming souls erupted. They did not reach for John. They sank into the body of the motel. A new sound ripped through the roaring chaos. Not a scream of rage, but a raw, desperate plea. No. Master. Please. The voice was the puppet master's, stripped of all its borrowed power and theatrical menace. It was the shrill, cracking sound of a soul feeling the first true tug of the abyss. Another chance? I beg you. I will bring you 100 souls. 1,000. I will weave them into a tapestry of torment for your halls. I will flay the hope from every child in Texas. Just don't take me back there. Not to the pits. The hands did not pause. They did not listen. They continued their work with the slow, inexorable force of a glacier. Timbers that were his bones groaned. Shingles that were his skin peeled away. I'll be better. I'll be clever. I can still get him. I can. His promise dissolved into a shriek as a cluster of hands found the core of his consciousness within the structure and began to pull. It wasn't a quick extraction. It was a meticulous, excruciating unraveling. It hurts. It hurts. It burns. Please, I'll be a good dog. I'll wear any collar. Just don't. The final word was swallowed, not by the earth, but by the sound of his own essence being stretched and sundered. The begging disintegrated into fragmented, psychic howls, wordless protests against the ultimate, indifferent repossession. The last thing to fade was not a threat, nor a curse, but a pathetic, echoing sob that seemed to get smaller and farther away, as if dragged down an endless, dark well. Then, silence. The hands were gone. The motel was gone. All that remained was the echo of a bargain that had finally come due. Silence rushed in, heavy and shocked, broken only by the crackle of cleansing flame. One hand remained. This one was different. It was not made of stone, but of woven shadow and thick, coagulated blood. It rose slowly and turned, not toward the devastation, but directly toward John's hiding place. It had no eyes, but he felt its regard like a physical chill. Then, with a slowness that was itself a violation, it curled all but one finger into a fist. It thrust that single, dripping digit upward in a gesture of obscene, ancient contempt. It held the pose, a stark and silent promise in the flickering light, before melting back into the earth like a nightmare retreating at dawn. The message was not from a clerk. It was from the old dark. And it was clear, this is not over between us, John Wayne, we will meet again. Silence. Then, movement. A twitch. Epstein's broken shell, the empty vessel, stirred. A flicker of the original, weak soul had crawled back into the ruin, like a roach returning to a bombed-out building. With a shattered spine, he began dragging himself, inch by bloody inch, toward Matthew Jr.'s fallen rifle. A last, pathetic hope. A shadow fell over him. Steel flashed, a whisper on the wind. The Chinese Dao descended in a perfect, silver arc. Epstein's head rolled free, coming to rest face up. The eyes stared at the stars, vacant. No hellish hand rose to claim it. It wasn't worth it. From the drifting smoke, the Chinaman emerged. He was lean, movements efficient as a cut wire. He wiped his blade on a cloth from his sleeve, sheathed it, and looked from the head to the scorched patches of earth, then to John behind his barrel. A faint, unreadable smile touched his lips. "Looks like you could ve used some help, cowboy."